Good morning, Spring Valley. On behalf of Spring Valley High School, I would like to welcome all of our students, staff, and guests to our first Veterans Appreciation Assembly. I want to especially welcome all of the veterans who are in attendance today. It is an honor to be with those who have served in our armed forces. Please stand while the Spring Valley High School Color Guard presents the colors. And now our national anthem will be played by the 282nd Army Band from Fort Jackson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Spring Valley College Senior Cadet James Johnson.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Order, colors. March time, march. Colors, color turn, march.
Please be seated. At Spring Valley High School, we feel it is important that our students and staff know and celebrate the significance of Veterans Day. Although we have many students with parents and relatives who are now serving or have served in the military, there are many who do not have a military background and may not appreciate the level of sacrifice our veterans have experienced. I was fortunate to be brought up in a military family, and I know the sacrifices our veterans have endured. Many times they've been separated from their loved ones for months and years, their families moving from one military base to another. My father, who is 94 years old, is here today. A veteran of 3 wars, World War II, Korea, and Vietnam. He instilled in me the love of our country and a respect for all of our national military observances. Veterans Day, Armed Forces Day, and Memorial Day. He has always flung the flag of the United States on a large flagpole in his yard, proudly displaying it all for all to see. Many of the men who fought alongside him on D-Day, the Battle of the Bulge, in Korea and Vietnam are not here today. But the memory of their sacrifice will always be proudly displayed with this flag. Senator John McCain, a pilot during the Vietnam War who was shot down and taken as a prisoner for 6.5 years, shared a story one time about a fellow prisoner. Mike Christian, who was a source of inspiration to the other prisoners who shared the prison block with him. In 1971, the prisoners were moved from small isolated rooms to 2 to 3 to a large room of 30 to 40 as a result of the efforts of the American people and their concern about the treatment of the prisoner of war. This was a welcome change. One of the men who moved into this room was a young man named Mike Christian. Mike, who came from a small town near Selma, Alabama, from meager beginnings, did not wear a pair of shoes until he was 13 years old. At 17, he enlisted in the U.S. Navy and later earned a commission as a naval flight officer. He was shot down and captured in 1967. Mike had a keen and deep appreciation of the opportunities this country and our military provide to those who want to work and want to succeed. The American people were outraged at the time because of the terrible treatment our prisoners were receiving, and as a result of their protests, the Vietnamese made some concessions. As part of the change in treatment, the Vietnamese allowed some prisoners to receive packages from home. And some of these packages were handkerchiefs, scarves, and other items of clothing. Mike Christian got himself a bamboo noodle, and over a period of several months, he sewed an American flag with the bits and pieces of clothing he had gathered. Every evening, when the prisoners had been given the bowl of soup and the guards had left, Mike would turn his shirt inside out, and they would say the Pledge of Allegiance. This source was a source of pride each day for all of them. One day, the Vietnamese guards searched their cells and discovered Mike's shirt and the flag sewn inside, and removed it. That evening, the guards returned, and in front of the rest of the prisoners, beat Mike for several hours. After throwing him back into the cell, the prisoners treated his injuries and cleaned him up as good as they could under the dim light bulb of one of the light bulbs hanging in the ceiling. After all the excitement of the evening had died down, John McCain looked over in the corner, and sitting under the dim light was a piece of red cloth, another shirt, and his bamboo needle with Mike Christian. Mike Christian was sitting there with his eyes almost shut for the beating he had received, and yet making another American flag. He wasn't making the flag because it made him feel better. He made it because he knew how important it was for the prisoners to be able to pledge their allegiance to the flag and country. We offer our students and staff the opportunity to pledge their allegiance every day at Spring Valley High School, and I hope all of them know and appreciate the reason. That is why we want to remind them of the sacrifice and courage that thousands of Americans have made to build our nation and promote freedom around the world. Our assembly today is a celebration to honor American veterans for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for the common good. We now take this time to honor our veterans. If you have served or are serving in our armed forces, please stand and be recognized. We are honored by your presence. Thank you for being here today, and thank you for your service to our country. I also want to take this time also to recognize any students whose parents are serving in the military. If you are a dependent and you're out here in our crowd and your parents are serving in the military or have served in the military, please stand. I'd like to see this military dependents. Who have served in the military. If you are a staff member, a teacher, please stand and be recognized. You see some of the video that we've put together, some of the slides we put together are of our veterans, and some are students' parents, some are uncles, aunts, grandfathers, grandmothers, and we'll show you that during the assembly also. We are also privileged to have the 282nd Army Band from Fort Jackson under the direction of Chief Warrant Officer Thomas Jackson Jr. and First Sergeant Eric Nasoro here today to perform along with the Spring Valley High School Symphonic Band some great patriotic songs to get us in the spirit. During their performance and throughout the assembly, a slide presentation will be presented of the veterans associated with our students and staff. At this time, the 282nd.
song we'll be playing today will be our national march, John Philip Sousa's Stars and Stripes.
At this time, I'd like to introduce our guest speaker. Lieutenant Colonel Robert Allen Murphy was commissioned as an infantry officer through ROTC at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on May 14, 1995. His first assignment was with the 5th Battalion, 20th Infantry at Fort Lewis, Washington, where he served as a rifle platoon leader and battalion adjutant during deployments to Panama, Haiti, and Thailand. Following the infantry captain's career course, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy served with 3rd Brigade, 1st Infantry Division at Vilseck, Germany, deploying to Kosovo during KFOR-1A as a task force battle captain. Assuming command of B Company 2-2 Infantry at Vilseck, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy deployed his mechanized infantry company into northern Iraq in support of the 173rd Airborne Brigade's air landing and subsequent capture of the city of Kirkuk. Following company command, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy worked as a joint and multinational exercise planner in the G3 U.S. Army Europe in Heidelberg, Germany. Following the command in General Staff College and the School of Advanced Military Studies at Fort Leavenworth, Kansas, Lieutenant Colonel Murphy joined the 1st Armored Division in Wiesbaden, Germany as the G5 Chief of Plans and deployed with the division to Baghdad, Iraq. Lieutenant Colonel Murphy's next assignment was the S3 Operations Officer, 1st Battalion, 4th Infantry in Hohenfels, Germany, after which he was selected as a Special Assistant to the Commanding General, U.S. Army Europe. Lieutenant Murphy's awards include the Combat Infantryman's Badge, the Bronze Star, Medal with 1 Oak Leaf cluster, and the Meritorious Service Medal with 3 Oak Leaf clusters. Lieutenant Colonel Murphy is married and has 1 child. Let's welcome Lieutenant Colonel Murphy.
Go Vikings. Principal Timoni, Mr. Childers, fellow veterans, families, staff, faculty, students, and especially teachers of Spring Valley High School, thank you for honoring me with the invitation to speak to you today. Your symphony sounds great and the color guards look really sharp. Go Vikings. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Robert Murphy, and for 20 years I've been a soldier. I have the honor of commanding a basic training battalion here at Fort Jackson. That means that every 10 weeks, 1,400 young men and women just like you show up at my door, and my drill sergeants transform them from civilians into soldiers. And that whole process takes us about 10 weeks. But in that time, we train them to think, act, and fight like American soldiers. But let me tell you a little bit about who we transform. They're all between 17 and 20 years old, a mix of male and female from every possible economic situation. Sound familiar? Well, that very same group of folks has been showing up to serve ever since King George decided to crack down on his rebellious colonies back in 1776. They also showed up after Fort Sumter was bombarded, and over 600,000 of them lost their young lives fighting to keep our nation united and our fellow human beings free from slavery. Did you know that more Americans died in 3 days of fighting at Gettysburg than died in the entire Vietnam War? And that the Civil War alone devoured more American lives than all of our other wars combined? Those 17 to 20-year-olds showed up again to stop Germany from dominating the world twice, fighting and dying in places like Bastogne, Belleau Woods, and Hurtgen Forest. The second time around, we had to travel across the Pacific to pay the price at Guadalcanal, Iwo Jima, and Corregidor. And when the nation called us to stop Korea from being overrun by the Chinese, it was 17 to 20-year-old Americans who died at the Chosin Reservoir and at Busan. In Vietnam, Grenada, Panama, twice in Iraq, and most recently in Afghanistan, 17 to 20-year-old Americans have stepped forward to defend our legacy. And the sun will not set today on a place in the world where a 17 to 20-year-old American service member isn't serving the cause of freedom. The point is, freedom and democracy aren't sacred things in the rest of the world. America is a beacon and a deliverer of freedom to millions around the world and here at home. That's a fact that those veterans that stood up earlier and that we applauded just now learned when they were just like you. And they really were just like you. I bet you anything that their parents thought they had it too easy, that their music was too loud, and that their clothes looked funny. They too were about 17 to 20 years old and unsure about what the world was all about. But they all answered America's call. Some volunteers, others were drafted. The satisfaction that they all have is the knowledge that they've joined a long red, white, and blue line that stretches back to 1776. A line that understands that our right to speak our minds, practice our faith, and be free from oppression comes at a steep price in blood, sweat, and tears. They also know that America is a very special place, worth fighting for. They learned the hard way that in order for the idea of freedom to flourish at home, it has to flourish around the world. They know that freedom is not a slave to geography, and the principle that every human has a fundamental right to individual liberty is just as precious to a girl in Afghanistan as it is to a girl right here in Columbia, South Carolina. America is special in so many important ways. In my 20 years, I've worked with many of the world's armies. Almost all militaries in the world swear their allegiance to a king, a dictator, or some other authority figure. My brothers and sisters in the British Army, who fought alongside us so bravely in Basra, Iraq, and then again in Afghanistan, pledged their lives to defend their queen, and the Germans pledged to defend their parliament. Here in the United States military, we swear to uphold our Constitution. Think about that for just a second. America defends an idea. The idea that government exists to serve the people, to protect their God-given right to do whatever God intended for them. We don't serve a president or a nation. We serve the principle of our Constitution, and that principle is liberty. But that idea, as phenomenal and perfect as it is, comes at a cost. Believe it or not, there are a lot of folks around the world that aren't picking up what we're laying down.
And the idea of liberty has cost the lives of hundreds of thousands of 17 to 20-year-old Americans. Americans just like you, just like the best friends of those veterans sitting in the audience today, who count themselves lucky every day to have survived, but who live with the pain of losing people they love more than their own lives. Guys and girls just like the ones sitting to your left and right. Guys like Army Private First Class Thomas Kaufman, who went to Lexington High School and was killed when his Humvee was hit by a rocket-propelled grenade in Baghdad. He was 20 years old and been out of high school less than 2 years. His sister was a senior at Lexington High School when the Army chaplain had to come to their home to deliver the news of his death. And then there's Private First Class Anthony White, who played basketball at Richland Northeast a few years ago, and he was killed by a suicide bomber just a few short years after he graduated. So I told you all this because you need to understand the terrible cost of the freedoms you enjoy today, and that it is young men and women just like you who are paying for them. So appreciate that sacrifice the way all of those fallen 17 to 20-year-olds would want you to. You may wonder how. Well, if you're old enough to vote, then educate yourself on the issues and vote. If you're not, pester your parents to vote. If you feel strongly enough about an issue, get out there and exercise your right to free speech and get involved. If you feel the power of your faith, then practice it in peace. And for all of those rights mentioned in our beloved Constitution, make sure you are just as committed to everybody else's sacred right to practice them too. So if you want to honor a veteran, really honor a veteran, thank them for their service and shake their hand, but more importantly, exercise the freedoms and rights that they've secured for you and all Americans. We are an absolutely amazing country full of hope and opportunity. So open your eyes and your hearts and fulfill the dream that was purchased for you. I'm going to leave you with one of the most beautiful pieces of poetry ever written about the love we all should have for mankind and one another's liberty. I really hope you recognize it, and which perfectly expresses why our nation is worth fighting and dying for. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Those words stir my heart and drive me to put my boots on every morning. It should be no less to you as you go about your lives in a freedom-loving nation. Thank you all once again for inviting me here today. God bless America, and God bless you all.
Lieutenant Colonel Harper, thank you for coming today, and thank you for your service too. Inspiring words. Thank you. At this time, our Spring Valley ROTC drill team will perform.
students, veterans, anyone who has served in a branch of the armed forces of these United States, we would ask that you stand when you hear your service song. At this time, the Armed Forces salute. In a field west of Des Moines, Iowa, artist Ray Sorensen discovered a rock and after some time painted with graffiti. He decided the rock should be properly painted once and for all, and did so with remarkable skill. He emblazoned the sides of the rock with battle scenes from our nation's history, including Washington's crossing of the Delaware and a scene from 9/11. Fragments of speeches from American presidents are included. An American flag drapes the rock, now known as Freedom Rock. At this time, it's Spring Valley Symphonic Band and the Message on the Rock.
For me, the Freedom Rock is a labor of love. Every May I come out and paint the rock over and give it a completely different look to thank our veterans and to make people think about those past and those present that have laid down their lives for our country, and just remind people what Memorial Day is all about. My name's Ray Sorensen. Everybody calls me Bubba. I'm a mural artist. I've been painting murals since the very first Freedom Rock, so for the past 16 years. In 1999, I started the Freedom Rock by painting a simple thank you to our veterans, and I put the flag raising at Iwo Jima, and thank you veterans for our freedom. And after that, I got such a huge response from our local vets that I decided to repaint it every May. One of the most unique and important parts about this rock is that the helicopter on the north side is painted with veterans' ashes mixed in. This is the one thing that remains each year when I go to repaint the Freedom Rock. I started this in 2006 when a group asked to spread some veterans' ashes around the rock. To date, there are over 60 veterans' ashes within the green paint, and it's something that will be here and last forever. I'm very proud to volunteer my time and my money to create this Freedom Rock every year. And because of the popularity of that, I had the idea to start the Freedom Rock Tour. While the Freedom Rock is my thank you to veterans and a volunteer effort, the Freedom Rock Tour is a funded project that takes the message of the Freedom Rock thanking our veterans and then coupling that with Iowa tourism, trying to put a Freedom Rock in every single county in Iowa. The goal for the entire tour is to be completed within 8 to 10 years. Once I finish the state of Iowa and have one in every single county in Iowa, so many of our veterans are spread throughout the country, I think it would be a unique idea to then have one in every single state. I'm proud to paint the Freedom Rock each and every year. I've made it my life's work to take that thank you statewide and nationwide in honor of our military men and women, past and present.
gave some gave all.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to thank all of our veterans and our active servicemen and women for being here with us. Many of them were able to join us for our Veterans Day breakfast prior to this assembly, so thank you again for being here. We pause today to recognize and thank our veterans and their families for their service and their sacrifice. We realize that freedom is not free. We live in the greatest nation in the world, and we are blessed to be Americans. As you have learned, Veterans Day is set aside to remember all of the men and women who have taken up arms to defend our country and our freedom. We honor every soldier, sailor, airman, airwoman, Marine, and members of our Coast Guard who gave service to this great country and stood ready to give life itself on our behalf. And yes, some made the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom. The celebration of Veterans Day here at Spring Valley High School reminds us that learning takes place inside the classroom and outside of the classroom. The Veterans Day Committee has worked diligently to make sure this opportunity was one of learning for all of us, and I would like to thank all of them for making this a success. I would also like to thank all of the participants on the program. Many thanks to the 282nd Army Band. Let's give them a round of applause. The dynamic Spring Valley Symphony Band. Let's give them a round of applause. Drill team and cadets, give them a round of applause. I would also like to thank Mr. Childers, who's our chair for our Veterans Day Committee. Let's thank him as well. And of course, our guest speaker, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Allen Murphy. Thank you so much. Simply that freedom is not free. That's something that we must continue to remember. As we celebrate Veterans Day tomorrow, I encourage each and every one of you to reflect on the sacrifices that have been made for us. To our veterans, whether you fought in World War II, Vietnam, Korea, Kuwait, Iraq, Afghanistan, or you served during a time of war or a time of peace, your service is recognized and truly appreciated. Before we go, I would like to ask all of our veterans to stand one more time, and our students whose parents are in the military, so we can recognize them. Again, thank you for attending our Veterans Day Assembly. Teachers, we are about to prepare for dismissal back to first period. So students, listen carefully. Students, we ask that you find your teacher and stay with your teacher as you leave here in a very orderly fashion. Thank you so much. Our dynamics and fine band will lead us at this. Thank you.